Hey guys, welcome to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Dr. Kori Propst. And Kori and I were talking off camera about a podcast she listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this topic, Kori. I'm looking forward to what you pull out of this, because when you want to be a high-performing person in anything, it could be athletic, could be business, could be your family and just life values.
Yeah.
There are some things that knock you off track. And sometimes, as we talked about, I think for the last 2 episodes, there's sometimes this pull of, I know how much I have to give and dedicate to being amazing at something, but is it worth it? Am I sacrificing too many other parts of me and my identity? So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about that.
Well, I think if we're going to be great at anything, there are concessions to be made, right?
Absolutely.
So this was Peter Attia's podcast. He has a great one called The Drive, and he was interviewing Sasha Cohen, who is the Olympic skater. And she said, you can be a healthy, functioning human being, or you can be the best in the world at something, but you can't be both. And the podcast was really about how she's transitioned from being this world-class athlete who built her entire life and being around Olympic gold. You know, striving for success in this one moment, and then having to transition into what more normal life.
Right.
Like,
what is that?
Yeah. What does that look like? And so I really was just thinking about what we can learn from this in terms of leaning on other identities. She really felt like that was her only identity. She didn't have other hobbies. She didn't have other interests. She didn't spend her time doing other things. So she literally didn't feel like there was anything else to fall back on or rely on. And so she had to recreate kind of a new life for herself. For most of us, normal people who won't ever be, gunning for an Olympic medal or something, we do have other identities that we can fall back on. And I think it's important for us to be able to ask ourselves these questions, like, especially when we go through a setback or something difficult happens in our lives and we do need to transition. Like, how am I defining myself? Do I have other hobbies, interests, friendships, support people that I rely upon? Other things that give me purpose in my life. I'll use the cycling accident again. When that accident happened, Joe, what I began to realize, and it took me a little while to realize this, is that I defined myself as a cyclist. Even though I'd only been doing it for 2 years, I was so enamored with the sport. I was deep into it. I was riding all the time. I built friendships around it, and it took up a lot of time in my life. I was a cyclist. And when the accident happened, there was a loss of identity. It was almost like, how can I be a cyclist when I can't even stay on a freaking bike, right? There was that thought, like, no, I don't belong on a bike. I can't even stay on one going around a corner. And I know, like, we laugh. It sounds silly, but when we go through really difficult times like that, it can be like our identities are fractured or splintered in many ways. And while I had other things to rely upon, like my work and, contributing to this company and the well-being of my clients, a lot of people, Sasha didn't, for example.
Yeah. It makes me think, Kori, what would happen, or what would you recommend in terms of just having a sense of awareness? So if you're going to be a high-performing person, you got this goal, you are absolutely gunning for the win.
Yeah.
But you, as a licensed mental health therapists and health psychologists know what sacrifices are going to be made. And on the back end of that, you may have kind of killed the goose that lays the golden eggs, like all of your family, your friends, everything that made you happy, you may have destroyed to get that golden ring. So knowing that going in and saying, okay, I still have to make sacrifices. There are some things I have to put on the sidelines, and I have to, maybe get rid of some of these relationships that are dragging me down. But I do want to keep these things as priorities. I have to make sure my friends, my families, my support system, I'm bringing them along. So it's almost like being the administrator or CEO of your project to excel. You gotta create that team and bring them with them and coach them along with yourself so you don't lose it all.
I agree with you. And I think it can become a matter of timing and intensity and just amount of effort that you have to weigh in terms of, and I hear this word a lot from my clients, Joe, balance. I need balance in my life. And I'm like, well, that's going to look different for everyone, depending on what your circumstances are, what the goal is that you're gunning for, the time and intensity, like I said, about what you're willing to put in. And it's an iterative process because our lives aren't static and things change all the time around us and our environments change. It's almost like from moment to moment, we have to be able to weigh what's appropriate now. Something that, like, I'll use a client as an example. I have a client who, I feel like she's adopted this identity of binge eater. And when I ask her how she is, struggling, not going well, things suck. And, right? You laugh like, oh my God. Like,
only because I know a few of those people, yeah.
It's hard for people to be around that. I can imagine what it's like to be in it, and I would want to get out of that. But it's like she has fused with that identity of failure. Nothing ever goes well for me. I can't do this. I'm always struggling. And this is a time where we need to be looking into, well, what else is out there? And this is a person too who, and I see this a lot with individuals who binge eat. If you look at their environments, you see it's an example of the chaos inside. Their environments are chaotic too. Like their cars are trashed and messy. Their houses are full of just stuff, and it's very disorganized. And this is no criticism. It's just an observation. And so one of the things that I think we can do in this vein about, let's look at what identity we're actually adopting and how do our environments support that identity that we might want to leave behind and kind of scoot out of. And then how does our environment, people, places, things, people we talk to, everywhere we go, what we do, how do those things support the identities that we want to rely on and move into? It's almost, an identity is like moving into a new home. It's something that we become. It's a part of us.
This is such a big topic. I'm refraining from going into a dozen directions at a time here, but no, I mean, what you just said there last, I think is exactly perfect. And I remember sitting with a counselor with my wife, and the counselor using an analogy like that look, this is an identity change for Joe. And if you don't support that, he will go find other people who will support that. And so you can either be part of this and accept and okay, and that it's like you said, it is literally difficult for that person to even create a change that big, and then it carries with it so much. I don't want to say entanglement in a negative sense, but there is a lot of other lives that are affected by that, and that's what makes it so difficult.
There are lots of things attached to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Tentacles, for sure.
this is not a small thing to talk about the way that we even identify ourselves. Like you saying, I said I'm a cyclist.
Right.
I remember the very first time when somebody said, hey, what do you do for a living? And I said, hi, I'm Joe. I'm a writer, because I didn't consider myself that. And even with my MFA in writing and all that, and I was struggling with just that. Like, who am I? What do I do? What's the biggest part of myself professionally?
And it can feel really strange to announce yourself as something when, especially, it hasn't maybe been a part of your life for very long. But I have clients who I have asked them to identify I'm the type of person who, in order to start that process, fill in that blank. I'm the type of person who, and it at least creates a trajectory for them to get outside of the identities that aren't serving them and helping them and move into new ones that they can kind of weave into their lives more easily.
Absolutely. Can we wrap up with the quote from Sasha again? Do you remember? Do you have that handy?
Yep. So she said, you can be a healthy, functioning human being, or you can be the best in the world at something, but you can't be both.
And Dr. Kori Propst is here to say you can be both, but it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of work and those kinds of things. So that was awesome, Kori. This is a topic we're going to have to come back to and hit some of those different angles. Great. But thank you so much for that. And you guys watching, listening, thanks a lot for that. We look forward to bringing you some more great things from the brain of Dr. Propst very soon. We will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.